Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
In my association with Project Group, they definitely withheld information.
The whole fleet of them, look on the ASA. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely.
Time.
So for anyone who didn't hear me, so what
which would be everybody.
Yeah, which is everybody and the dog, is welcome back to Total Disclosure. I'm your host, Ty. I am going to be a little bit more consistent about these live shows every week, and I'm super excited to kick that off with an old friend and kind of be able to just banter and sit back and really like kick this off with someone who's intelligent, and that is, host of Hollywood After Dark, Matt Jarbo. You are one of the most intelligent, intricate, complex people I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. And I just want to say thank you. It's been so long.
Yeah, we haven't chit-chatted in quite some time. Thank you very much for the warm introduction. I appreciate that. And Ty was always, been very dedicated to the craft, whether it was movies. Then when you made the transition to UFOs, I was like, okay, because to me it felt like such like a left field turn,
Right.
It's all like all of a sudden you're one day like, man, F movies, dude, but like UAPs are pretty badass. And I'm like, all right, that's a shift, but I'm still very much in the movie space, and so it's kind of like, that's where I'm at pretty much all the time. But no, it's I'm really happy to see that you've grown this thing. It's a very dedicated community of people out there that are always in search of the truth, obviously. And while I'm not like I'm not as into it as and as you guys are, I do find it to be a topic I've always I always kind of go back to that quote from the movie Contact, right?
Right.
If we're the only ones here, it's a gigantic waste of space.
And that, that movie based on the book by Carl Sagan, there's another quote that gets thrown around the UFO community a lot. And it's with, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And that's one that I really like, but I also don't like, because for me, it's like, okay, extraordinary claims require evidence. Evidence is evidence. It's neither extraordinary or not. So I love the quote. I really do, because I think it really says what's needed to be said, because there are people like nowadays who just post, pictures of planes and call it a UFO.
Yeah.
They're trying to get attention, or, like the spotlight put on them. And what I will say, the pop culture community really, it hardened me to what I was about to get into. So it actually helped in terms of transitioning topics. So I understand where you're coming from. It's like, all right, dude, like kid just watched the water dry up on like the Snyderverse and all that.
Yeah.
And just jump ship. Right. And it was more, I was like, I hated every time I hit the live button or record, like it was a struggle to get through.
No, I completely understand. I took a lot of last year off, and it's because I got a new job and it was like full time, and these are like long, 12-hour shifts, right? So And plus you had the writer's strike and like all the nonsense that came out of that. And we're still dealing with the fallout of that. And I've also been a pretty big proponent of artificial intelligence, especially in the creative space. I found that to be like the most interesting thing happening right now is that. And a lot of people get real mad at me for it. Actually, I got people that stalk me all the time because they think that I just like, I hate artists or something. And I'm like, no, I just think that AI can help you get your vision out there.
I'm so sorry. And people will learn this, by the way. Jarbo and I have been doing this a long time. Our banter is a little different than other people's. So it's weird because it's almost like no time has passed.
Yeah.
Back, right? Like back couple years ago. But what I was literally saying this not even the other day is for smaller creators or filmmakers, AI is going to bring that Hollywood budget, for graphics or whatever it may be, whether it's short B-roll clips, this or that. It's going to allow smaller creators to do much larger things.
Well, not only that, but look at it through the lens of the people that are UAP enthusiasts, right? Like, someone's out there with like a really grainy image. You can throw it into an upscaler and get a better idea for what it could be. You know, because like that's the one thing I always chuckle at, right? And don't get me wrong, when I say like I have been a big fan of like cryptids my entire life. I live in Washington. Bigfoot is our like our mascot here. They have this Sasquatch Con coming up here in the next couple of weeks, which I want to try to find time to go to. I grew up reading about the Loch Ness Monster. I grew up reading about all of these things, like all of that stuff, like some of the creepiest unsolved mysteries bits were like the ones with like UFOs and stuff, and like the being taken and the abductions and all that stuff, like X-Files. I mean, I grew up watching, you got the I Want to Believe right there, and being from the Pacific Northwest, we have a lot of that here. Right. So it's always been something fascinating. But what I never understand is why in this age where everything is like ultra 8K, UHD, massive gigabits of data, and everyone still shoots pictures through a damn potato. I just don't get that. I just don't understand.
I was literally when you were forming that sentence, it's like, I was just hearing this the other day from, I think it was Danny Jones' podcast. It was like, why is the massive quality rise in cameras? You think there'd be like a massive rise in better UFO pictures, but like UFO quality pictures stayed here while the world advanced. Yeah. And if that's not telling in a little bit of a sense, then if you're in this community, you got to know that 95% of it's bullshit.
Yeah, but I mean, as much as I like to push back against, because me, I like to be fact-based. As humanly possible, I prefer to be fact-based. A couple, like, I don't give into conspiracy theories. Like, the only one I'll even entertain is that Epstein is still alive.
Oh,
because I think he is. I do. I legitimately think he faked his death. I think they faked it to get him out of there, and there's that. But that's my own theory. Because but at the same time, it's like I look at like you have to, I guess, now from the outsider perspective, make the distinction between almost like what a UFO is and what a UAP is, right? Because while they do kind of fall in line, they can be used interchangeably. I think like this is the joke I wanted to make earlier is remember what happened when they started calling STDs STIs, right? Interchangeably, they're like the same thing. Interchangeably, they're kind of similar, but it's just like, ooh, there's that connotation with disease. We don't want to make that a big deal. So UFO to UAP is kind of the same thing. I'm using this very surreptitiously as a humorous piece of thing here. Do not take me seriously on this. But it's like the connotation of UFOs, of abductions, of the sightings, of the hoaxes, you might even say, over the years. And then they go, ooh, but there's a negative connotation to that. So we need a new word that can kind of reset the game, so to speak. Yeah. And that's kind of where, because when I first started hearing people talking about like UAPs, I'm just like, what? Like, what? They've always just been UFOs. Like, who changes this?
No, they definitely did change it because of the stigma and trying to move away from it. So
that's the same thing with the STI.
And the comparison is, and it's amazing.
Really you're going to get so many hate comments on that one.
Yeah.
I am just kidding. Okay. I'm just using it as a, you guys had to understand my sense of humor starts at the bottom and works its way up.
For anyone who doesn't know, his Hollywood After Dark logo is the Pornhub logo.
It is, and it works. I have it on a hat now. I need to get that. I need to get that out again. But yeah, I had it put on a hat.
Oh.
I had to talk to Lids to get them to make it. They were like, "Is this something we can do?" They literally had to go to like their corporate office to get approval because they're like, "This looks a little bit too familiar," and I'm like, "Yeah, but it's not."
Yeah, every dude working at Lids is fucking.
But it got approval. It got approval.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
So it's my sense of humor is very, very childish and very immature. But I juxtapose that by being very analytical and very left brain.
Okay.
So
my son isn't going out on X right now. Apparently, I'm trying to fix that. So
they've been having some issues with X.
Pardon me. So while we're talking, I might be looking around. I'm just trying to get that working. I've had nothing but issues the past week. And I don't want to sound too conspiratorial, but I had Jason Sands on, UFO whistleblower, and let's get into that. I really do. I know you have some thoughts on the UFO whistleblower, kind of, we'll call it a phenomenon in itself. But I had him on, and it was pre-recorded. I edited it, uploaded it to YouTube to premiere. It didn't premiere. The podcast host that I put it on, I used Sprecher. It didn't premiere. And those are completely separate. Sprecher has nothing to do with YouTube. YouTube's owned by Google. So on both sides of it, it didn't premiere, and I had to, for the podcast, I had to open an IT ticket to get it on. It was stupid. So again, don't want to sound conspiratorial, but it's only happened one other time before this, and it was with another UFO whistleblower, Michael Herrera. So
interesting.
I don't know. And from a general perspective, from your perspective, I want to talk about first UFO whistleblowers and what have you started, because you're plugged in but not completely plugged in. So what is it that you're hearing about the whistleblowers of the UFO community, and how far is it getting down?
Well, I mean, a lot of what I see is on Twitter. And also on Reddit, because I do lurk on our UFO and a few other subreddits and whatnot, because again, like I said, I've always been fascinated by it, and it's one of those things where it's like, I want to believe, my brain is like, you want to believe, but you also want there to be concrete evidence of this. But then also, what is that concrete evidence supporting? Is it supporting, when we talk about unnamed aerial phenomenon, is it just that? Is it just secret technology we don't know about yet? Is it actual aliens? Because there's all these questions about what they're going to be. And so I guess you could say in Normieville, the last big, you had what was it, last year? You had the congressional hearings.
Yeah, and we had November. Yeah, so there was 2 last year. Oh no, yeah, 2023, 2020.
Yeah, okay, yeah, because those ones are what I'm talking about. And that was even then just it was kind of I probably knew more about it than your average person, because we follow each other on Twitter, so I see what you post. And then but it's mostly I think for me it's I'm just waiting for the big news announcement. I don't care about and this is a lot of people. We don't really care about the in particulars, because it's like people who make films. You just want to know, is a movie good or bad? Not why is it good or bad, right? It's you just want that, give me something I can jump onto that I can go, okay, I can get behind this.
You're right.
And so far it's not, and again, you have way more knowledge of this than me. So I can only look at this from a normie perspective. But it's when the normies, I think, would be very willing. I think more people than not would be willing to go oh, aliens exist? Yeah, okay, cool. About time you fucking said something. I don't know if we can swear in here or not, so I'll keep it minor. But it's because I think that's how a lot of people are. They're just kind of yeah, we've been dealing with this in our pop culture and the grand zeitgeist of what America is, and just as technology has expanded, right? Okay, well I know I'm kind of all over, but kind of here's the thing, right? It's you figure we had a big uproar or a uptick in visitations or sightings or whatever in 1940s, 1950s, right? Roswell, and you had stuff in the 1950s and everything else. And then it feels it kind of stopped. Now, one might go, okay, well, what about like, the government, right? The government's keeping a kibosh on all this stuff. But then I also kind of look at it through the lens of like, what about when you had people sailing the high seas, right? When that was our primary form of transportation and trade. You would hear stories, mermaids, kraken, right? All of these sea creatures that were there.
Columbus documented an orb that, quote, led him to the New World.
See, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But like, where the hell has that orb been for anything else? Like that's what I'm talking about. Is like, look at Atlantis. I do the theory of Atlantis is something that I truly, truly do like, because it sounds so cool. And but again, it's that idea there. It's like, what if people just had this idea of things, and as we got more and more and more and more and more technologically advanced, and more and more and more and more and more the world opened up, we started to realize that like these things kind of slowed down because, there was like a lot of it was either being hidden or it just simply, like you said, 95% of it's kind of BS, right? So I'm just talking about this from the outsider perspective. Okay. Like that's what I'm trying to say is like the way my brain works is like, I like to go, what is logical? What could happen? Why could it happen?
We're up on X.
And then from there, be able to determine like, like I guess you could say the Occam's. Yeah, like the simplest explanation. Yeah, because it's like I think a lot.
What is the simplest explanation can be that we're being fucking visited.
Sure.
Right.
But it's like dude, there's over 8.5 billion people on this planet. We have satellites everywhere. I can get almost a high definition view of my house right now if I try hard enough.
Understood.
You know what I'm saying? It's like technology has allowed us to look into places we've never been able to look before in better and more advanced ways. So while I do not poo-poo the idea of us being visited, I think if there was in fact, and I think there are, again, you cannot look at the vastness of the universe as we see it and go, wait, there's nothing, we can't be the only ones. Like evolution would not work that way, right? It wouldn't work that way. Single cell amoeba to dipshits on the internet. It's
with thermonuclear weapons.
Yeah, exactly, and a gigantic fear of everything around us. I mean, so I do feel that there's a high probability that we have been visited. I do feel that there are elements of it, but I also would wonder if somebody can get here, if a species can create intergalactic travel and get to us. Wouldn't you think that if anything, they would be watching from a distance for a long period of time to figure out if we're idiots or not?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because like, I mean, so, but I heard another theory a while back that was like, what if all the crash landings that we've had reported were just alien billionaires that got the hell off their planet and just crashed here? What if they were all Elon Musk's looking for Mars?
Right. And that's inevitably that's their demise.
What if Elon is an alien? That would make a lot of sense.
You said it on Rogan the other day.
He probably did.
And I swear, the way he said it was almost like he slid it in right at the end. And it's like, I'm saying it, you think I'm joking, like, because he's like, he tells Rogan, like, I'm responsible for 90% of rocketry on Earth, and I have a top secret clearance. There's, he's saying they're if aliens exist, they're very subtle, and he has no evidence of them. And he has all these things, and yada yada. And then he kind of just says to Rogan, he's like, or I'm protecting them because I'm an alien, and I just want to get home. So
it's I mean, but part of it's funny, but at the same time, you're like, it's almost kind of like groaning. You eye roll. Like, if you're an alien, just then be honest, because that's all people want.
Well, Zuckerberg looked like an alien, and then
he looked like Data from Star Trek, man. He was like an android.
And then someone in his lineup was like, dude, they pulled him aside and they were like, hey, bro, look at this picture of you on the beach. You look like a fucking alien. You need to grow your hair out, wear a gold chain and a t-shirt that's a little bit too big, do some jujitsu, and blend the fuck in.
He definitely like went from Android to like surfer beach bum kind of guy.
Yeah.
And you know what? Good for him, right? He looks normal now. Like you look at him now and you're like, I feel like I can have a conversation with this guy, not ask him like, very scientific questions and wait for the beep boop response. It's
well, that Andy's not censoring your data anymore.
Well, they all all that shit. To be fair, they make money off your data, so that's how they make their money. That's how Elon makes his money off Twitter. That is how Zuckerberg makes his money on Facebook. They all sell your data, and it's like that's it. If something is free, you're the product.
Yeah, and TikTok got banned. Right.
Well, they got another. Well, TikTok had 75 days, which they're now coming up on the last 20. I don't know what's going to happen with TikTok, but people seem to be afraid of TikTok.
Yeah, so. And when it really went down, and I couldn't get it on the App Store anymore, I was like, "Oh Jesus, like it's real."
See, I never deleted it.
Yes, the people who didn't delete it didn't have the issue. So, people like me who didn't have it on their phone and just used it on the internet browser.
Yeah.
Because I honestly, I don't want to sound like a Rogan, but I did actually go through the terms and conditions, and I was alarmed. But I've also was alarmed at Twitter's and Facebook's. So you're right; they all do it.
The simplest way to look at it, and I just said this, is if it's a free product, you're it, right? You're the product. Like they're gaining their info off of you. I mean, OpenAI does this, with the AI stuff. Everyone does it. It sucks. Nobody wants their data to be used like that. But at the same time, it is just the cost of doing business. I mean, you can always find ways to kind of, I guess, shield yourself from it, tinfoil it maybe a little bit. Be wary of what you post. At the end of the day, what you post is what you post. And that's what people need to be more careful of. It's like, I don't post pictures of my kids publicly,
drop a location tag with a picture of your kids and we're going to be here for 4 hours today, guys, giving details to weirdos.
The thing is, people are smart and they know how to utilize the internet, and they know how to utilize, if they want something, there's in many ways not hard to find. One of my friend's dad actually worked with the FBI on that kind of stuff, way back in the day with MySpace. And he was like, you can easily go on to some of these kids' pages and find out exactly where they live off of 3 posts.
Yeah.
And it's kind of horrifying. That scares me more than anything else, to be fair.
And it scares me. And so Eric put this up, and I wanted to make sure we get to it because it's actually part of the whistleblower thing, right? Now, Eric spoke at the Dr. Greer event that is being referenced in this question. So Eric was one of the whistleblowers who gave testimony at the National Press Club event. So Jake Barber is the latest UFO whistleblower, and he did the News Nation interview with Ross Coulthart. I don't know if you saw it, but he was a balder guy, very beaming eyes, and he alleges that he was part of the crash retrieval teams and also provided video of crash retrieval of it was green military footage or that night vision style.
Yeah.
So it was that footage, and it was actually clear. I'll give him that. It was probably the clearest video I've seen, but and I'll bring it up so you can see it. But the problem is he's flying the helicopter, and it just looks like a rope with an egg shape thing tied up. You don't know it's a UFO. It's not. Again, it's that same situation. It's what do you mean? No one fucking took a picture of this thing. When you picked this thing up, you weren't what is that? It has no flight control surfaces. It has no this. It has no that. You weren't, snap a picture with your phone. What the fuck is this thing? Because, it's a big giant egg is what he reported.
Yeah.
So Jake Barber was part I don't want to go too deep into it because you don't need to know like the nitty gritty details. But this whistleblower was essentially working. And do you know what red teaming is?
The term sounds familiar, but fill me in on it anyway.
Say I'm company A, right? Let's say I'm Lockheed Martin.
Okay.
And I call a private company B, right? Third party contractor, whatever. And I say, I want you to red team us. So I want you to try to break our infrastructure. I want you to try to break in physically, maybe. I want you to try I want you to be the enemy, essentially, and try to get into our systems, right?
Okay.
Whether that be like physically walking into the building and showing the security vulnerabilities. Maybe, you have someone walk into the building, and if they can let them get as far as they can. Sometimes that may be the CEO's office, and he walks into the CEO's office and he says, now you're dead. I just walked through this building and no one stopped me and I killed you. I just red teamed you. Right.
Okay.
So Barber went to this National Press Club with the goal of red teaming the disclosure project and the disclosure effort. Dr. Greer's specific effort. So, I mean,
but why?
Exactly. So we're deducing that the government or whoever's pulling the strings, whoever's doing that, at the end of the day, they're the ones sending these people out, right? They're the ones because Barber was essentially there to, grab names and then throw the book at them, right? For like prosecute them, like get them prosecuted, arrested, whatever. And Eric was one of the people who spoke. So, that's concerning. But Jake, in that process, Jake Barber like came to and was like, what am I, allegedly, now he is saying like, I saw the flaws in everything and now I'm on the good side.
So, okay. So he was like
he flew the helicopters that picked up UFOs and it wasn't always UFOs. But he was part of a special access black program that was a on call. So they would call and be like, there's a pickup tonight, pick up at this time, pick up at this location, and then that team would get ready. They'd deploy, they'd retrieve whatever they need to retrieve, bring it to where they need to bring it. So he was just part of the flight crew. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's a wild story, dude. So now we got like whistleblower on whistleblower violence, like, right? So, I mean, it's getting really crazy. And the reason I ask you about whistleblowers is this is probably the most mainstream stuff that the UFO community's got going, aside from additional hearings.
I mean, I try to keep an eye out on what's going on. I haven't heard anything of this. Now, you got to understand though, right now, when we talk about the mainstream news, a lot of it is dominated by the president, and Elon and that whole thing. So that is going to be, it's kind of like a couple weeks ago, right? You had Rep Luna and Comer, right? And they came on out and they're, there's that big thing you were all excited for. And I told you, watch, nothing's going to happen.
I was so excited.
Yeah. And it was just,
by the way, I was told by government officials that it was going to be worth watching. Like I was told by members of Congress.
Yeah.
So that's why I was excited. And you were right.
Well, the reason why, look, you got to understand, it's like all of this, everything they do like that is posturing to some extent. Okay. So it's like looking at it through the most logistical lens possible. What would be the purpose of this? Okay. If you're going to come out there and you're going to be like, we want disclosure on UAPs. Okay, cool. Great. I'm there with you. We want disclosure on RFK, JFK and Epstein. And like, all right, great, man. Fucking bring out, Elvis while we're at it, MLK, all that shit, right? Do everything. Just drop it all. Because we're not stupid. People in this country, in this world, they ain't fucking dumb, right? They can figure it out. We already generally know most of it anyway. I mean, look at the Epstein stuff. It was a nothing burger. They touted out a few right-wing influencers.
Binders, dude.
The binders. One of those guys is a guy named Mike Cernovich, who for the longest time was pushing nootropics on Twitter, and we all just kind of figured it was just him like drying his own cum, and it just he's insane, and that was a whole thing from like Gamergate and way back in the day with that whole stuff, and so like all the Epstein stuff was like nonsense, and I had a passenger recently that was like refused to believe that Trump was friends with Epstein because he simply said he wasn't friends. And I'm like, all the documentation suggests otherwise, but okay, I'm not going to fight you on it. And so when she came out now, she's talking about that. I'm like, what is she trying to get? Because I know Luna, as much as I don't trust her, I know she's been big in the UAP stuff and she's been pushing for that, which is good. But then you got her with Comer, and Comer spent years trying to like nail down Joe Biden and like couldn't do anything. He's inept. So what are they trying to do? They're not bringing their best. You know what I mean? Like if you want to get somebody, I mean, Christ, I don't know how you feel. Like I would say someone like Dan Crenshaw, who I don't even like, but like the dude's got military experience. He understands the system. He knows what would be redacted. He knows what would be non-disclosed. He would know the general framework of how this stuff operates to be able to at least get something of value out of it. Right. Exactly. And we're completely on the opposite side politically. Okay. So.
Very, for anyone who doesn't know, like for you to say that that's even telling in itself.
I'm super liberal is the thing is if you guys don't already know, but I'm not, but again, I don't care where a good idea comes from, provided a good idea emerges. And that's how I view everything. But no, I would look at someone with military experience to go to on a situation like that, who might have a better understanding of what to look at. People in Congress, I'll tell you this, man, this is going to sound so dumb, but it's like, I remember back in early 2016, it was around January 2016, Hillary was running against Trump. And there was this whole big thing about how like, John Podesta was her chief of staff at the time, or I think he led the campaign. Yes, they're all like, if she gets in, she's going to disclose everything about Area 51.
I have a really good so I have something to come back and like add into this and how the modern day UFO, like modern, I'm talking post 2017 article, and this is where you are going to lead into. So hit it. Can you hear me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were like setting up a promo or something.
No.
Oh, okay. My bad. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I misread that. I thought you were like setting up an ad break.
It's so fucking good, dude. Oh.
All right. Anyway, no. So basically, it was like early 2017 or 2016, and they're talking about how they just want to declassify like stuff on Area 51, and that would be great because like I was writing papers about Area 51 when I was in high school. When I moved from Portland, Oregon down to San Diego, California, I was looking up like how far it would take me, how long by car, about 10 hours to get from Lakeside, which is where I used to live, out to Rachel, Nevada. I was looking up like how to get to Tikaboo Peak before the Air Force took over the fucking mountain, the bastards. You have, if I remember correctly, you have to hike 3 hours that up to the top of the peak, and you'd do it at night, and you could see the valley. I was reaching that a lot back in the day. So like, even
Matt, can you hear me? Yeah, you're cutting in, and you kind of sound like a robot all of a sudden.
Oh, on my end. StreamYard is good.
StreamYard's always acted up.
But he just, I always enjoyed like that. I wanted to see it. I still want to see it. The last time I was in Vegas, I rented a car with the explicit intent of driving the 4 hours from Vegas out there.
It's funny
to go to the entryway.
It's funny though, because they bought that. They expanded the perimeter.
Yeah.
And it was almost like they did it specifically to capture any vantage points.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. There was even a family around that time that was fighting back because the government was trying to argue manifest destiny over their property and basically find a way to kick them out and everything else. And I'm like, fine, I get it, but at the same time, it's like you guys don't make it look any better on yourself.
I'm reading this. The Arrow summary report stated victims of direct energy weapons were reported on every continent except Antarctica. And he's saying, really? Because his whistleblower testimony is specific to Antarctica. Specific. And he's saying that what Eric says is that there's a neutrino device down there that can be used not just as it's intended, but it's also can be used as a weapon and has been, and caused a certain natural disaster. I can't remember exactly which one right now, so I'm not going to like guess. But so what he's saying is that Arrow's report can be totally discounted, and yeah, I know, because that's the stuff you know about. That's the stuff you see most likely is the stuff that comes out from the congressional hearings and these offices like Arrow, the All Domain Resolution Office and All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office.
Even that kind of stuff though doesn't ever really seem to make it into like a lot of the normie spaces.
Right.
You know, like, so like, I think the last thing, like legitimately the last thing was, I think the David Garouche testimony, I think was the last stuff that I remember hearing about, like in some form of mainstream.
Yep. And that would make sense, because that was, you know, obviously that story is different. And he was talking about biologics and, you know, his rank and what he did, you know, with the NRO and all this stuff. And that's where the Ken Klippenstein thing comes in, is Ken from The Intercept. And The Intercept is famous for like protecting whistleblowers. So, but you see the irony in that?
Well, yeah, because I remember I did listen to Ken on a Twitter space. There was somehow it got recommended to me, and I was out working, and I was like, all right, I'll listen. And it was actually really fascinating, the whole thing. You know, and I remember him pointing out that David he'd been busted for, was it DUI?
No. He had to go to like rehab, maybe a DUI. Okay, you know
something
what?
Alcohol related. It was something, I believe, alcohol related.
But he was suffering like many veterans who were deployed during wartime.
Mm-hmm.
He was and he had one of his best friends in the military had committed suicide, or was killed in action on deployment. And when David came back, he struggled with alcoholism and then had to check himself into rehab, but he did it voluntarily. And during that time, he kept his security clearance. And, you know, with security clearances, you know, if you're red flagged, they don't hesitate to take that away.
Yeah.
So this guy, you know, not only is he struggling with his PTSD and you know, his service to his country, I just don't think weaponizing that to any form can be considered a way to. That's like saying I'm an alcoholic, because you know me, Matt. I'm very open about this. I haven't had a drink in 5 years. That's like saying, you know, everything I say is bullshit because I was an alcoholic 5 years ago.
Well, yeah, no, I get what you mean there, and I think it's I think the idea there is that, like, perhaps this is just like the way I would approach it if I was in Ken's position, is like, you kind of want to have the most crystal clear, you know, evidence, right? Like nothing that can be potentially skewed any particular way. But I don't think we live in that clean of a world, to be fair. I don't think you can ever have anything without some ambiguity to it in any capacity.
And you know what? Maybe it is good to have all the information. Maybe it is, you know, for someone to be able to look at all the information and know that, you know, maybe knowing that he did struggle does change your perspective on him. And maybe, I don't know.
Well, what I mean, like, I guess because I don't know enough about it in detail to be able.
Ken was paid by.
The USA. Yeah.
I'm like, wait, what the hell is going on? What is going on?
It was, I mean, like I told you, because I looked it up, and it was largely to combat misinformation. But it's also possible while you are, it's almost like, what's that Nietzsche quote about staring into the abyss, right? Be careful the abyss doesn't stare back. And that can, and I think that is really just a nice way of talking about cognitive dissonance, or maybe a little bit of confirmation bias. So what I mean by that is, you know, you spend so much time battling misinformation and disinformation in the modern age, which is rampant, you know, and then you see something that maybe doesn't check out all the way, or it doesn't entirely pass the sniff test. And so your brain is already wired at that point to start poking holes in every narrative you see. And so as a result of that, you can't see the forest through the trees. Now, I'm not trying to defend him. I have no idea. I'm just merely pointing out that it can happen when you start looking for stuff and you know it's there and it's easy to find. It does kind of pervert your worldview a little bit. You know, it's like, I have trouble, and I'll admit this, I have trouble talking to someone about, let's say, movies, if they start criticizing something that is like not, you know, that is nuanced. And maybe I know something they don't, or I'm not looking at their perspective. It's hard for me at times to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
Like because I've dealt with so many of those kind of people over the years.
Right.
Of just like blatantly lying and pushing out false info. That it's like, yeah, your guard is up. You kind of go in, you know, you're like Russell Crowe fighting around the world sort of thing. You just get in there and you're like, I just want to mess everybody up. Like it could be like that. Now, it's not a good place to live. It's not a good mental space to be in. But I don't know. I mean, it's very difficult in the world we live in to parse out everything, because it's nonstop, right?
It's
like
very unique.
Well, question. Okay, so what about those like Peruvian little mummy alien bodies, right?
I think this is a good case study in how far the muddy water can go.
Yeah.
Right. And so the Peruvian mummies, I don't think we'll ever really know anymore. Like,
because they were confirmed and then they were invalidated, and then they were confirmed and then they're invalidated again. And you know,
one of the huge mistakes that was made with the mummies was allowing the guy, a man named Jaime Maussan, to champion the effort, because Jaime, although he is extremely popular in South America, and like so like you could almost consider him like the George Knapp, like the B version of George Knapp of the South America. George Knapp broke the like Bob Lazar story, but George Knapp was also like, he was an Emmy Award or whatever the journalism award is, Tony's, I forget.
Pulitzer?
Maybe, I don't know. But George he's an award-winning investigative journalist who then took on the Bob Lazar story. So it wasn't, he won the awards after, it was before from his work investigating the mob and all that stuff in Las Vegas. So, and then it just so happens that John Lear comes into the station. John Lear, you know, his dad, Lear Jets, he was the heir to the Lear family, and he had flew for the government, you know, yada yada, but also had a propensity for storytelling, and you know, that's how. So what I was going to bring up earlier is this Times article, and how I think the modern day UFO story is a DOD. It's a DOBSR, so the DOD pre-publication office. It's a DOBSR approved controlled disclosure. You see all these whistleblowers coming out. They all have gone through DOD pre-publication. So the DOD has approved, or at least considered, what they're talking about as not a threat to national security. They're not necessarily endorsing it either, you know, but I mean, they're saying what they can and can't say. So this whole thing, it feels like some sort of drip feed, right? Like getting us ready for something.
Well, I mean, yeah, like,
Jaime
you know,
was on with the Peruvian mummies. That was the problem. Jaime is a known. He'll see anything as a UFO. He'll see anything as an alien. He's been caught before
okay.
peddling fake shit.
Oh, Jesus.
He's not a good. He's controversial.
That's always the worst part of it, right? It's like, look, you can like just stop peddling fake shit. It's like, because all you do is make it harder for anything to come out. But then again, that could be an op too. That could be an op by someone to like controlled opposition and sort of thing. Do I think that they're well? Okay, so here's the thing, right?
On that saying, like the UFO community lives on that notion of it's probably controlled.
Yeah, I get that, but I do feel like it's okay. Like think of it like this. Okay, a couple years back, remember when NASA said that they were no longer going to focus on localized space exploration, but focus on deep space, and they're going to turn the rest of it over to like privatized companies like SpaceX, Blue Orion, was it Virgin, whatever the hell that one is. I kind of thought to myself, it's like at that point in time that they know that there's either like nothing nearby us, or they're just like really looking to see like where we can go when shit hits the fan. And I kind of think that's more likely about what NASA's up to, because you'll hear about these Goldilocks planets coming out of the Kepler telescope, and they're like, oh, this one's 8 light years away or something, or 800 light years away or whatever the hell it is, but it's in the Goldilocks zone. It could be habitable. And you look at like what the Mars Curiosity rover is doing right now is gathering information for whether or not we inevitably go there, which is going to happen. But I don't think they're doing it for that. I think they're doing it for when we have to leave the solar system. I mean, obviously the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, you get, there hasn't been much out of that in years, but there was, like they showed us the Andromeda system, right? The nearest one to us.
Yeah.
When it left. And so there's a lot out there, and we're now able to see. And what's so fascinating about it is not necessarily about like the distance as much as it is the time, right? Have you seen that big issue, like that big image that Kepler took where they're showing us like that? Those are just snapshots of things that happened so fucking long ago.
Like numbers we can't fathom.
Yeah, like we don't know how old that beam of light is that we're seeing now. If it takes 8.5 minutes for the sun to reach Earth, I think about like, and that's what I mean. It's just it's everything out there. So yeah, are we alone? Like fuck no, we're not alone. There's no way feasibly you can look at any form of evolution and think that we're the only ones here. Are there people out there that can be varying degrees of advancement? Yeah, absolutely. But it's, I do feel that if we're being seen, they might just be, it's like, what was it? I like to go back to First Contact. You know what I mean? Right. I love that damn Star Trek movie, but it's like the whole thing of them getting the rocket up and the Vulcans passing by just so happened to notice, but that kicked our entire world into the next phase, right? And I think a lot of people are kind of waiting for that. I think a lot of people are waiting.
I think that a lot of people are waiting right now for Trump, and I don't want to go to
I know. I get what you mean.
He's this day one. I mean, I knew nothing. The amount of things that he had prepared himself to do on day one could not be feasible. He said he was going to essentially fix the world in a day. It's a salesman tactic, but yeah, it's just that. So a lot of people right now who maybe they don't even like Trump, but they've seen him say other things, because he's been known to say, I've seen some, I've talked to some people, I've heard some things, I don't quite believe it myself, but if you've seen the shit I've seen, you might question it.
Well, so the motherfucker can declassify whatever he wants.
Right. And
so
we're still waiting. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And then, you don't know, you want to say, Trump, why are you not doing this? But then, this new, task force been created. And you don't know if it's the career bureaucrats that are just they never told Trump anything to begin with, because he's a temporary employee.
But the president has access to all of that, meaning all he has to do is
You
go.
have access to Lockheed Martin.
I am pretty sure they can sit there and dangle the defense contract renewal in front of that to get the data. Because at that point in time, those guys are getting money to work for us. So I don't know if they're going to be subject to a kind of disclosure. But you can only hide behind that for so often, because they're going to have DOD contracts, which means that they're working with DOD officials. So those officials are going to have the knowledge of that. And so I don't believe, I get what you're trying to say. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's a really fair point, though. And because the way I answered you with that is the way anyone in the community, the UFO world,
sure,
whatever, that's what they'll say is it's all private, because they'll quote that Eisenhower line that I have in my own intro, right? Is beware of the military industrial complex. So they say that he was trying to warn us of something that he had basically lost control of already. Right?
You're right. I mean, you look at the fact that, go back to the GW and Dick Cheney and Halliburton and all of that stuff. And, I say this frequently to a lot of my passengers. We'll talk about the defense spending. And I say, we should take a couple $100 billion of that and reorient it towards education and healthcare, because the only way to have a populace that is well poised to defend this country and all of her interests would be to have them be healthy and educated, and that's how I view it, is like, you need to, for all of this, if they're holding back information about UAPs and extraterrestrial life and things like that because they're afraid of a panic, I think we're well beyond the panic phase. I think as a
society as a whole, the world right now, tomorrow, disclosure happens, you don't think there's problems?
I think it's going to be more of what the plot line to the Watchmen comic and the Watchmen movie was.
Oh, wow.
Hear me. Think about that. No. Fucking think about that for a second.
I like this.
All right. The idea there is, look, we as a species, okay, we're fundamentally flawed. Okay. We don't want to be bigoted or racist or anything like that, but we have it beat into us outside of our control. Because racism, sexism, discrimination, those are things that are taught. That is a hand-me-down trait of failure.
You don't wake up racist. No.
Yeah, you don't wake up racist. That's stuff that's taught to people. So we have that innate fear of the other. It's been brought into us by media and by our government and by, you could say, some social groups, some religious groups, you name it, it's like that. What we need is to give you guys a prime example of this, is go back to September 12th, 2001.
Oh, God.
Okay, as fucked as the day before it was, that unity that America felt following that event was something we'll probably never truly get again. And that was everyone. Like, I'll give it to you an example. I lived in Lakeside, California, which is known for being a very racist part of San Diego, predominantly white. There was a Chaldean family that owned a discount liquor store. And on September 11th and September 12th, there were people there that were standing around in case somebody tried to attack that store.
Yeah.
People you would not fucking think would do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they were doing it because it wasn't at that point, it was about none of that other bullshit.
It was
right. It was about, yes.
Against them.
Yes. And that's what
we didn't even really know who them was yet.
We had an idea. There was an inkling. I mean, it was like people, because we have to remember, there was immediately video footage coming out of the Middle East, I think Iraq, where they were like burning American flags in the street. And that was very much, I controlled propaganda in many ways, I would argue, because what was it? The first thing we did is bomb Afghanistan like 20 days later.
Dude, we carpeted them.
Yeah. And then we just kept going for years. I mean, we killed over 180,000 Iraqi civilians during that time. I'm not trying to I'm anti-war, but I'm just saying we did some shit. But before then, we were unified against a common enemy.
Yeah.
And I think that, and the end of Watchmen is the same way, right? In the comic book, it was a squid that everyone could be united to fight against. In the movie, it was Dr. Manhattan, which I think is, again, more like fighting God. It's very, very kind of on the nose, but again, it worked really well for. Yeah, it's very. They deconstructed the concept of it, and I think they gave us a better ending.
Yeah.
But that being said, it's like if we would sit there and look now, we understand our place, right? If we were to see UFOs in the sky, or there to be an alien transmission, or there to be anything to fully back up the concept of what we've been talking about or watching through pop culture, especially through pulp comics in the 1950s, G-Men in black and all, clandestine UFO meetings, all of these things we were taught to look at and look through the lens of being fun. If we see it then, we now know the heavens are real. What is beyond us is greater than our comprehension. And we are now just a speck in a grander pool. Almost like the ending of Men in Black, when it does the zoom out to the marble and he's clicking the marble. It's very similar to that ideology, that belief, which is that we
go back to that the line Kay says, or Kay says to Jay when he's first got him there, he's like, 100 years ago we thought the world was flat, whatever, 1,000 years, and then he goes up. And he goes, imagine what you'll know tomorrow.
Yeah, today, and today you thought we were alone. Imagine what you'll know tomorrow. It's a great line. It's a great movie, by the way. I love that goddamn movie.
Great movie.
But it's true. It's the idea there is that if you think about it, pop culture has, in its own way, prepared us.
And you don't think there's any chance that's on purpose?
I think preparing us for something they can't control, right? I think in some ways. So, what I mean by that is we can't really control when there's going to be a potential sighting, right? But it's kind of like, go back and look at Godzilla. Godzilla, no one ever thinks Godzilla's real until he's at your fucking doorstep, right? And then have you seen Godzilla -1?
Yeah.
So good. But look at that movie. And look at it through the lens of being like a UAP type situation. Okay, Godzilla is now an alien threat. Okay, mankind, the government kind of did nothing for the people because there's nothing they could really do. The people had to band together to prove their own worth to themselves. That was what the Japanese people were fighting for, is with their own dignity, for their own soul. That's why that movie is like the best movie of the last 5 years. But they were fighting for their own soul, and that's why they banded together to fight back against Godzilla, and they won by working together. Now, the only way we as a people are going to truly transition to the next phase of our existence is by actually working together. And that might be what pop culture, what these movies do.
You've hit the nail on the head for the 8th time. And that's why, like I said, that's why I've always liked you and like conversating with you, because I don't think you're as one-dimensional as a lot of people who talk about movies. I'm being honest.
No, I love the concept of it all. So
yeah, but here's my thing is we look at Hollywood as a whole, and everything you've said is spot on, right? Marvel movies have, Marvels, whether it's Marvel, Star Wars, or whatever, it's kind of conditioned us to basically look up at the cosmos and expect that it's teeming with life, and I think that, not only is that precedent there, but there's also the invasion storyline. And I think that there's a good number of people that if UFOs just showed up tomorrow would truly think that there's some sort of invasion, and whether it's shooting at them or looting or robbing. I think there would be a lot of technical issues.
There would be. Go back to Orson Welles doing the War of the Worlds broadcast.
Right.
That broadcast, hit people just completely in the face.
Yeah.
And they thought it was real, and people committed suicide because they thought it was real. You had a couple years ago, not a couple years ago, the Harold Camping Rapture from back in 2011. You don't remember that at all?
Wait, what?
Holy fuck, bro. Dude, this was insane. So this guy, he was a preacher. Yeah, this guy was a preacher out of Northern California. His name was Harold Camping. He used biblical math to determine that the rapture would happen at 6 p.m. on Saturday. I think it was April 10th or 11th, 2011 or whatever. 2011. And this guy convinced them that this was going to happen. And some people gave up like hundreds of thousands of their own money, bankrupted themselves to this man to buy advertisements and everything else. I was in LA. There were billboards were all over LA. That exact night when that happened, I was at the theater working, and me and this dude Hector, we were just kind of joking about it because we're like, okay, it's now 6 p.m. in New Zealand tomorrow. Check nothing's happened in New Zealand. I think we're good. And it was, but some people committed suicide. Some people financially bankrupted themselves. Some people gave everything that they had to this man under this belief that the rapture would happen. And they ran with it. And then Harold Camping got it wrong. And he never offered an apology as far as I remember. And he died a little while later, pretty much in disgrace. And that's the thing. It's so like, yes, if we were to see something like this, you initially would, I think, have the people that would react with consequence.
Holy.
You know, you wouldn't be able to get away from that. But I do think that it depends on what they do. So let's say if there's like an instant they attack something, at that point, everyone kind of coalesces around each other. Now we have the common enemy. It's in the unknown is what I think would cause the greatest catastrophes.
So, question: do you think religion would thrive?
I think that it would be a mixed bag. To be honest with you, you'd have some people that would renounce their God. Some people would think that this is merely a vessel for their God. You would have a variety of different things. Now, Sarah here has a point, saying, I think chaos will reign. Chaos will reign, but not permanently, right? It's about, right. It's like, go look at well,
because eventually people would have to pay, eventually.
Yeah, there would be initial freak out, right?
Yeah.
You'd get a whole bunch of WTF tweets, but look at like District 9. If we're just going at this in regards to like, the movie, the pop culture side of things. Okay.
Yeah.
District 9 is a great example. A spaceship's almost derelict, right? On its last legs, comes here and they seek refugee status and we treat them like shit, and then it goes kind of crazy. But it's like, would that also be a thing? What if you got a group of people that are out there and they're running around and they get injured by an asteroid or a comet or whatever, and then they limp here because we at least have what they need? How would we treat them? Right? I mean, it all really depends on what they bring to the table.
Right. What can they do for us?
Exactly. And go and look at, and this is where if you want to, like, I think one of the things Men in Black really touched on, and I, again, I have no idea, but if you look at the advancement of technology, and really look at the advancement of technology from 1950 until now, 75 years.
Yeah.
Where have we come?
Well,
we have gone so fast that it's almost unbelievable how fast we've gone. And now we're in the AI phase.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
So go back to Men in Black. What was the condition of refugee status in the world? They would have certain patents on their technology.
Right.
Not to say, and I always thought about that. Like, what if, what if something happened in Japan, got with stereo technology or some shit like that, right? Sony knocked it out of the park. They were the ones to go to for years.
Right.
They had the best of all the electronics out of Japan were great.
And who knew, who knows? And what do you tell your stock? I mean, your stakeholders and the investors, I should say. Sorry, I couldn't find the word there, but what if you're you're funding company A, and then you find out company B had some sort of alien tech and had a huge advantage through the government? That would piss some people off. So what if, Northrop Grumman finds out that Lockheed has been getting, this downed, UFO material, and they're the money in that, in the proprietary, intellectual property and all of that, eventually would come into question.
Yeah.
And the finances would come into question. And how long have you had it? Who gave it to you? So how long have you had essentially a monopoly without telling anyone? And I think a lot of legal ramifications would arise from that. So again, I think the government, that's why I don't think it's as easy as the president coming out and saying, my fellow Americans were not alone. I think there's a lot more to it.
I think I agree with you. Although I will be completely honest with you. If I ran for president, I would argue that on day one I will confirm the existence of UFO and UFO based technology. I'm not even making that up. I'm not even making that up. I'd come out there and say it. Like I'd swear in, like, we're not alone, folks. We're not alone. So many aliens are here, not the ones you're thinking of. We're not going to deport any of them because they're giving us technology. Do you know where burritos came from? Omicron Persei. It's so good. So amazing.
I walked in here and I said, this is the best fucking... I love I love the Trump. I love it because all you have to do is say something, say how much you like that thing, and then follow it up with, it's the best or most beautiful.
It's the best, yeah. And that's what burritos are, my friends. The best and most beautiful thing. No, literally, I drove like fucking 45 miles north yesterday just to get a good burrito.
You're insane.
It's by the airport in Seattle. It's the best I found outside of Southern California. I will make the drive up there to go get a good burrito.
That's all right. We drove fucking 2 hours when the first Sonic was installed or whatever built, and it was in like a part of New York, and we drove like 4 hours for it. 4 hours for, and we got there, and I ate it, and I was like, we just drove 4 hours for this?
Yeah.
Why? Because all my buddies were like,
oh yeah, it's like In and Out. It's they built it where I was living in San Diego. They advertised Sonic for years, but they never had one. There was none in San Diego, but they advertised them for years. So they finally built one right around the corner from the drive-in movie theater that I worked at. Yeah. And so it really came together because people would just go to Sonic and then come to the theater.
Drive-in, yeah. Yeah, partner, that would have been dope.
We should have, but it is what it is. But yeah, it was okay. Like we have a couple Sonics up here. I don't really like to eat that stuff. It's just so oil.
Yes.
And but anyway, back to unidentified flying objects.
Yeah, I have 9 minutes left. I have to go. Yeah. And listen, I want to just say this now. I kind of want to do like more of these some way. So I know you were doing something, but I'd like to have you on. Maybe once a month we could do like a little panel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm off
3 messages from people like on X that said, and then one in the chat who was like, hey, can I jump in? And we don't do that in the UFO community, but remember the old panels?
They still exist.
Here.
You got to be more careful though. You can't just open it up. No, I think having, for one, healthy discussion, healthy debate is always a good thing. Yeah. As well as having a good sense of humor about it all. Obviously the thing is, look, man, I may not agree with everything that I read coming out of this stuff, but there's passion there that I can't deny. And we all want there to be a truth, and we all want there to be, to have that knowledge, because I think that's something that we as a species are deserving of.
Yeah.
We are owed that. If something is out there, we should fucking know about it. You know what I mean? It's like not going to kill us.
You can't, the same way that, space isn't classified. Like you can't classify reality.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things I have a problem with is the fact that, so if you start really looking into this, Matt, you'll find that I want to have a further discussion with you about this, because the Department of Energy, so when you actually go into the Atomic Commission or the act that they signed into law, it's very vague about material. So anything that emits either alpha, beta, gamma, delta, whatever, any sort of radiation, it's auto classified, even if it's something you like a citizen stumbles upon. So and what we've learned, or at least heard in a lot of these cases, is when there's down material that show signs of some sort of radiation. And I can cite 4, 5, 6, 10 up to 10 cases off my head where military personnel, Rendlesham Forest, John Burroughs, John McCain and his assistant ended up getting this guy's record unclassified, or they classified this guy's service record. So when he went to apply for VA benefits, because his eyes weren't working, because he had an incident with a craft, he found out that not just the incident was classified, his entire service career was classified. So they were like, you didn't enter the service until this year. We don't have you for this year. So they denied his benefits.
Wow.
There are so many cases like that where weird shit is going on. And, Dr. Gary Nolan is doing work where he's studying something called, they call it Havana syndrome. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
I have heard of that. Yeah.
So a lot of people say it's the side effects of these directed energy weapons is a causation of Havana syndrome. And, Eric talks about that in his testimony, and a lot of other people talk about it. Gary Nolan talks about it from the other side because he is contracted by the government and he is studying Havana syndrome for the government. So it's like all these pieces are actually there. And, people who are like very keen on the subject like myself, they know about it, but it seems like the truth is floating there. And they might have not come out and said it yet. Like, ladies and gentlemen, we are not alone. But for me, it's like, not only have I seen things, but like there's, for me, people with incredible testimony, and I don't know. So maybe we can put someone in prison for their entire life. They can lose their life with the death penalty in certain states based on eyewitness testimony. So, like, why is the double standard there?
Right? Yeah, it is an issue. I mean, when looking at it, eyewitness testimony is largely incongruent and inconsistent.
Yeah, like a lot of officials or doctors have now come out and said that. It's like, it's also, very susceptible to
manipulation and misinterpretation and things like that. I mean,
ultra.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that like I've got a good memory, but then there's times I'm like, am I remembering this event correctly? And it's
exciting. I think that.
Yeah, like I mean, I remember, like I've never seen anything in my own personal life that would be like that. I mean, the coolest thing I ever saw was I was at the Oregon coast one night. And I was camping when I was a kid, and I looked over the sunset, and I saw like an asteroid or a meteor like fucking burn up on entry. That was pretty big. That was pretty cool.
Dude, that's a cosmic event, man.
It was crazy. It just happened so quick. I looked over and it was like, just blew up and like, whoa, but you don't know. I mean, the thing is, you don't know until they tell you. And then the downside to it is going to be, is the government even telling you the truth about this when they tell you the truth?
Right.
That's the other part of it as well. It's like with all these testimonies and all these whistleblowers and these hearings and everything else, you figure like they would try. And I understand like this new task force and I understand that, Luna is trying to do that. And I don't know, I don't like her, but she comes across as at least somewhat honest about that, wanting there to be disclosure. But then she teams up with Comer and I'm like, this guy's it's more bureaucratical nonsense.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, just someone just ask, like have her contact like Trump's office. It's like, just give us something. I don't know. Like ask someone, like, what do we need to do sort of thing.
So Trump will definitely at least listen.
Honestly, I agree. I do agree. Flatter him a little bit. Right. Sir, I brought you a Diet Coke with a lime. Can you tell me about UFOs? Can you just,
your usual?
I mean, it's like Clinton, it would have been blowjobs, but with Trump, it's this soda, You know, that's how it is. That's all it is. So easy. Flattery and soda, folks.
Yep.
That's all you got to do. You know, I mean, it's. I don't know. I think. Look, I think. Inevitably, things will come out in a way that's going to be, I think, verifiable, and that people. I think people want. They want the disclosure. They want to know that. I think people want to know that we're not alone.
Yeah.
I think it would allow us to kind of reach this new level of consciousness. To be fair, I know that's kind of a tough sell in a few ways, but my reasoning for that is when you know you're not alone, it kind of takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
Right.
And who knows if it could deliver, like, you know, in a non-reactionary way to a tragedy like 9/11, could it kind of raise the footing for humanity to one? And
I think potentially, like, we could look at it. It would take a little bit of time because you're going to have your factions fighting over what it means symbolically, right? Or like metaphorically or whatever the hell, you know, you're going to have your problems with that. But I think a lot of people would look at it and realize, like, okay, so what does this mean now? Like, you know, we're just at that next phase, right? You know, like this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, or whatever, right? Like, did you ever see that Zeitgeist documentary from back in like 2007? Holy shit, dude. Look up. Oh my God. Dude, you want to know? Okay. You want to know a documentary that like literally took parts of the internet by absolute storm. It's called Zeitgeist.
Okay.
And it talks about like religion and like, I think even some stuff with UFOs and like fucking government takeovers and like conspiracy theories. Oh, bro, dude, it was big. Like when the internet first started coming around. I think it came out like 2006 or 2007. You should be able to find the whole thing on YouTube. It's just called Zeitgeist.
All right.
And it's a super, I mean, it's almost, I think at this point, kind of laughable, but it was such a phenomenon back then.
Wow.
It's so fascinating when that stuff, it's like,
yeah. And I know how those earlier, you know, viral.
Oh, no, okay. I know we got going, but I'll tell you this real quick. You know what got me, man? Oh, okay. One night I'm at the studio I was working at in San Diego, working on a screenplay. It's like 2 a.m. My friend who owned the studio comes out and he just looks at me. He goes like, "Hey man, you ever hear of Planet X?" And I'm like, "No, what the fuck is that?" He's like, "Oh, dude, you got to see this video. Fox News was talking about it." And I'm like, "Okay." So he shows me this Fox News report talking about Planet Nibiru and Zecharia Sitchin and all, you know, the Nephilim and all the stuff. And I went on a fucking rabbit hole, dude. Like I went on a rabbit. This is 2007. And in the back of my dumb idiot brain, I'm thinking like, are we going to die in 2012? Like, is like when the Aztec calendar ends, is that when we're all going to be swallowed up by the gravitational pull of this planet that's 8 times the size of Earth? And of course not, right? But it was still like, it was crazy. People really thought that. People really did. And then all these videos were just like 80%. Did they?
Yeah.
Well, 2012 was about the end of the Aztec calendar, but it didn't really tie in Nibiru.
Right.
But
I made that movie, I would have done a lot more service to the source material.
Oh, hell yeah.
Interesting.
But they did do service to the source material in Star Trek Into Darkness. So Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci, by the way, may he rest in peace. He just died last week. They were big into conspiracy theories. And so the opening of Star Trek.
Watch that then.
Well, remember the opening of Into Darkness when they go to that planet and it's got all like the dudes that are all in white, like the temples and the Enterprises in the water.
Oh yeah.
They're in planet Nibiru. And the thing with that is that movie is all about the Enterprise leaving the solar system.
Holy shit.
So they completely play up that whole thing from the 70s. And like nobody fucking got it. And I'm watching that movie in the theater going like, holy shit, it's Nibiru. Like I was happy, man. I thought that was awesome.
What a wild tie-in.
Yeah.
No pun intended. But all right, I do I don't want to end this. It's so bad. I literally have to go 5 minutes up the road and pick my girlfriend up at
I gotta go check on my kids and make sure they're not dead. So
Matt, let's make more a habit of this. So, and especially once I put this on the podcast platform, I think a lot of people will really enjoy this conversation for just the bantering and you know, kind of taking away from the quote unquote guest, even though you are a guest. It's that there's not like that topic specific thing. So I just like bantering with you, dude. And you're so intelligent. And for anyone who does, watch this in the future or listen to it on the podcast platform, and you watch movies and you like movies, definitely subscribe to $3 Theater and Hollywood After Dark. Just Jarbo is just amazing. So
yeah, it's a lot of potty humor. A lot of it. So yeah,
just a little sample tonight.
I kept it clean.
You did.
Ish.
You did talk about the one guy selling his dry cum, but
that he ate it. He definitely was, I think, trying to market it, but we believe that he was every day just, what, waste not, want not, is what I think.
With you, dude.
It's the thing. I'll show you some videos of old Mike Cernovich when he was on Nootropics, and you tell me that he's not high in his own cum. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan. Send those over to the DM. Yes. Guys, and then X is, what is it? Just Matt Jarbo?
Yeah, M Jarbo. Yeah.
I'm Jarbo. Matt, I'm gonna bounce out. So I won't be able to stay after, for our little get together.
No, that's all good, man. It's all good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, really, dude. I can't stress to you how much fun this was, and like, just really, it's a good like breakup of the stuff. So, and like you said, with bits of humor and maybe, it's actually nice to have someone who doesn't agree. Right?
Yeah, it's good to kind of like laugh and be cathartic. It's like a big old emotional hand job,
Yeah. I wish I had the button.
You just got to release, Ty. You got to release.
Matt, as always, you're a true treasure of the internet, and I'm very glad that we know each other. So everyone else, you know what it is. Hit it, and we'll get back at it next time. Next episode, Dr. Avi Loeb, head astrophysicist of Harvard, right after Matt Jarbo. I love it. So we'll see you guys next time.